basically our show anyway.
Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Mike Diamond, and this is the legendary Michael Unbroken. How are you today, sir?
Amazing, brother. How are you today? It's nice to see you here
Yes,
on Wacky Wild Wednesday.
Wacky Wild Wednesday, and we're waiting for Mr. David Meltzer. Maybe he'll show, maybe he
Maybe.
won't. But let's do a quick little recap before we bring on our first guest, which is, our first guest is Rebecca, and it's Contreras, if you pronounce it right. And she's going to discuss her book. But before we jump her on, how you doing, buddy?
Man, amazing. Life is good, brother. It is so amazing to feel just so connected to abundance right now and just feel, you'll understand this because so much of our lives have been this struggle of pushing the Atlas stone. And then one day you realize you can just use your mind instead of your body.
Love that. Awesome. Okay, Gigi, let's bring on our first guest. Rebecca, is she coming out of the waiting room for us?
But they could hear you.
She said they were doing this. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca, can you hear us?
Backstage, so now we're in a different backstage.
I don't think she hears us. Rebecca, can you hear us?
The real backstage.
Whatever that means.
No,
I don't think so.
Gigi, let's get on our next guest because Rebecca is having some technical issues there. And we'll jump over to our next guest, who's our next guest? Right here. We've got Rachel.
Gigi's saying they're not here yet. So, Mike, it's going to be the Mike and Michael show.
So, there are only two guests today. Do we have? It's just me and you. No problem, Mike. So all right.
I guess
you're
just
traveling,
us.
and I want to talk about a really amazing thing. And a lot of people don't understand this, and I know this about you and your process. And Jerry Seinfeld said this beautiful thing, and he remembered when he started off at Seinfeld, and it got a really bad kind of pilot, and it took a long time for it to hit. And he was telling this guy, he read George Burns's book, and George Burns said, write for 2 hours a day. And he remember watching Chris Rock one night, and he was like, God, these jokes are so good. He goes, yeah, some of the jokes took me 10 years to write and practice before I performed them. And the reason I want to step in with you is that you do the work I do, and people think that it happens overnight. So I want you to talk about that, how long the transformations take. And sometimes, like you said, like pushing up the Atlas zone, you have this epiphany. Sometimes it's stepping back, sometimes it's pushing forward. So jump into that.
Yeah, I think that the patience is your best friend and your worst enemy. And I think one of the things that is so incredibly interesting about this journey is, people do truly underestimate what they're capable of doing over the period of a lifetime. And I rewind back to the beginning of this journey, dude. I literally couldn't get out of bed to brush my teeth. Like, people see me now, like, Mike, you know me, you know this version of me. You don't know me 350 pounds, laying in bed, can't brush my teeth, eating chocolate cake for breakfast. Like, you don't know that life, right? And this thing about determining to become yourself is entirely within the space of the willingness to face your fear to become great. And what I think about all the time is not how do you be perfect, because that's nonsense. That will not be anyone's reality. But how do you become great? How do you become the greatest Mike of all time, right? How do you become the greatest version of you ever? And the thing is, it's going to take a decade. Even the most amazing businesses in the world take decades to get anywhere, right? And I think people are under the false assumption that you can just show up and that tomorrow life is going to be what you want. And it's like, no, you're going to have to give it a while and you're going to have to push. I mean, would you think that to be true?
Like I always say to people, to become unconsciously unconsciously competent in skills, it takes so much work, repetition, and then information coming in, then processing the information, and then testing the information. And it takes, like, how's this perfect example? I was telling someone the other day, and it's so funny. I still have CDs, and I still listen to CDs, and they laughed at me. Jelly Roll is selling CDs. They're going back to selling CDs because no one makes money from streaming. And they're like, why? And I said, because you listen to a CD differently, you hold it, you read it. And I grew up like with that process, right? It's really slow and you wait and you read the lyrics and you kind of get involved in the story and you read these books. And it's like it takes so much time sometimes. And I always say it's process, right? And progression. That's it.
Yes.
No perfection. Process, progression. Process, progression. That's all I live in. So I don't worry. Like when I was going to ask you a question, so you're 350 pounds. What was the epiphany that got you up the first day to make the first right choice?
Well, it was just like, if you don't change, you're going to die. It was very simple.
But it was like you just knew that you right, and it's like the Goggins thing where he went out and couldn't walk, and he walked a mile, and he was, it's like you just start doing the next right thing, right?
I had to quit quitting on myself. And speaking of, I believe that we have Rebecca ready to go to come on and talk about her amazing book, Lost Girl. So, Rebecca, who is now muted, by the way, if you could unmute yourself if you can hear us. That would be great.
Muted. Come on. Is she coming on? And no, she's still muted.
She is muted.
This has been
we cannot hear you. I hope you can hear.
She's oh my God. This is the best. All right, so let's go to our next guest. Let's go to our next guest. Gigi, this has been one of these. And you know what? It's weird, Gigi, because Mercury just got out of retrograde. So this is not a Mercury retrograde thing because it just got out of retrograde.
They may not be. It doesn't look like they're here yet, Mike. So here's what's really interesting then. If you're talking about progress, well then how do you deal with failure along the line, right? Because progress is this iterative process. And I think most people, because it's not perfect immediately, like today, they don't see it through. They're like, man, why bother? So how do you keep going when it's not working?
See, the reason I don't, all right, so I think failure is the wrong word because we're graded in the school system A, B, C, D, F, right? That's just crap. It's feedback. I just look for feedback and then I adjust my approach. So if I do something, I get feedback, right? So that's why I do so much stretching. I stretch my body in the morning and it gives me feedback and it's sore. So I don't tell myself when I wake up feeling really flat because we're convinced we're supposed to feel good. Who says we're supposed to feel good? That's why we take so many pills and do many like things for short-term gain, right? So when I get up in the morning, I go, I don't feel great. What does that mean? I feel tired, I feel sore. Okay. I lay down, I start stretching. I get feedback from my body. My body's stiff. That means I've got to stretch it out. After an hour to an hour and a half of stretching, guess what? I feel really good. Now, but I didn't stimulate myself with caffeine and all these things quickly. I sat in it because I used to run to regulate because that's what I knew. I'd run through my problems, right? I'd run to push through the pain because I know I'm going to get an endorphin hit. That's how mask the pain. So every time I hit a wall, I just go, it's feedback. Right. Then I adjust my approach. So I get deals with obstacles all day. I got a call the other day. My mum, literally, they said to me, we got a woman into like a detox. The hospital lost my mum.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, that's feedback. What's the next right move? Let's make some calls. Where did they move her? They're freaking out. I'm like, whoa, it's feedback. What's the next right move? And then it took us an hour. They'd moved her. They put the wrong thing through insurance. So I always say to people, it's just feedback. Your school's out. It's feedback. Feedback, feedback, feedback. Adjust your approach. And that's all I live on, feedback. And then I just, even with my body's telling me something, right? It's feedback. How do I adjust my approach?
Totally. Yeah. My body was like, dude, stop eating pizza and cheeseburgers, but here's the thing, Mike. I mean, I do say that in jest, but you have to listen to yourself.
100%.
I think that's the disconnect people take because the feedback comes in and they abandon it and they think to themselves or they say to themselves, well, this doesn't apply to me. This is somebody else. Like, it doesn't matter if I'll just do it tomorrow. And it's like, and eventually what I came to realize, this is why I'm a big risk taker, right? Man, I will do the craziest things, not dangerous or illegal, though I once did.
Calculated.
Yeah, they're calculated. As David talks about time and risk tolerance. Speaking of time and risk tolerance, Rebecca, welcome to the show. It's nice to see you.
Thank you so much. I apologize for the technical issues.
It's okay. Let's talk about your wonderful book.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Rebecca, you said, I in the notes, it sounds incredible. You came from poverty and then made it to the White House. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, my tagline is from the hood to the White House to millionaire entrepreneur.
I mean, let's talk about it because that's so inspiring for so many people listening. So you started off, obviously, not in the best circumstances. Did you think greater than your environment, or was there something or someone along the way that helped propel you forward?
Well, first of all, I have an American dream story, and I always say we live in the greatest country in the world, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. I grew up in a abject poverty home with a single mom. We had 4 different fathers, and addiction and heroin addiction and mental illness and just all the mess of what happens in inner city communities at times. And so, I had a young girl at age 17 and dropped out of school and started on the path of the same path of least resistance my mother had taken. And it's the only thing I saw in my entire life. So why not? And then at the age of 19, after my daughter was taken away from me, my mother ended up getting clean and taking her. I had somebody involved in my life who showed me a different way and actually said to me, Rebecca, you have potential in your life, and why are you on this path to self-destruct? And I had what I call a God encounter moment and decided, for the sake of my daughter, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired in poverty and on addiction. And I decided to drive my own future to change.
Wow. Love that. One of the things, we were literally just talking about this feedback, right? Because the universe, the people around you, your community, they're like, hey, take a look at your life. Most people, even when it's getting smashed in their face, they still don't do anything. Why did you decide to actually do something?
Well, at that point, I had been a victim my entire life. My mom abandoned me when I was 5 years old and left to go on the streets of Juarez, Mexico. We lived on the border town of El Paso at the time. And, I went through that process of, am I really a victim? Do I have to stay in this victim mindset? And I think that's an issue right now, honestly. And a lot of the issues that we face with some of the culture issues is, we've got to look at things from a different perspective than just being a victim, and really turn that shift and that paradigm in your brain to say, I don't have to be a victim. I can actually be a victor and overcome it and get in the driver's seat of my own future. And I went back to school and got my GED, stopped waiting tables and bars, which is all I had, at the time when I was, as a single mom. And I landed a job here in this great state of Texas for an iconic woman by the name of Ann Richards, who was running for governor in 1989. And those of you that follow politics know Ann was an icon in women politics. And, for the first time in my life, I saw a woman in power. I saw a woman of influence, and I thought, I want to be like that. And re-engineered myself and went back to school and got a lot of good people around me that mentored me, invested in me, and believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And the rest is history. It really is amazing what you can do when you set your mind to it and get the right people and the right tools at your disposal.
Rebecca, so incredible. So you said you had 4 different fathers, correct?
So actually my mother, there's 4 of us kids, and 3 of the 4 kids had different fathers. None of us knew our fathers. My mother was never married. My father was an owner of a club. He was here on a visa in El Paso from Yugoslavia. And, we didn't know our fathers. And mother was unfortunately riddled with addiction and mental illness. And, all the issues that happened around that. And so I don't know. My father, never met him, but I understand he was from Yugoslavia.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is I do interventions and I deal with addicts, and I'm on the show Intervention. I pull them out of fentanyl houses. Wow. One thing I want to ask you is that when you started on the process, because obviously we've got a lot of demons and we have a lot of inner critics. So you got to get your GED. But how did you start the basic rituals and routines to start building your skill set, to build your confidence up, to push through and not carry the old victim story? Because that's the problem right now. People, it happened to you. Like I had a horrible childhood, Michael's had a, but you learned to go, that's my past. I'm creating my future. That's so powerful. But what were you doing daily? Like you had to make a shift physically. You know what I mean? You had to take
I
action.
did.
What were some of the things you were
Yeah,
doing?
I think it's a physical shift, but also it's an emotional, a spiritual, and a mental shift that you have to make. It's sort of a holistic approach. You know, you can take yourself from your bootstraps, go back to school, and make different environmental changes, change your friends, change your environment, start making right choices, quit doing drugs, quit smoking, quit doing all the things that are going to harm you. But also, there's a lot of spiritual component to my journey, and I talk about it in Lost Girl, and that journey of finding who I was created to be, that what I was doing was not my purpose, and finding your purpose and understanding what that is, and knowing you have a purpose on this planet, and it's for good and not for bad. And all those things. I went through a lot of trauma healing and trauma counseling. I'm a big believer in trauma therapy. I think a lot of people have trauma and don't get therapy. My mother is an evidence of that. She died very young because she didn't get therapy, and she got cancer and couldn't fight it because she was in depression because she never believed in therapy. And so I think therapy is a big part of healing and moving and changing that paradigm and how you're thinking.
Brilliant. Mikey, you want to end it?
Yeah, last question, and then our next guest is here. Rebecca, I'm so curious, when you look at this journey of yours, obviously it's huge. I mean, I resonate, Mike does, never met my father, homeless as a kid, like the whole list, right? On and on and on. There's something that I think to be true in that a lot of people will use that victimhood as either fuel or as the thing that keeps them stuck. What advice would you give to someone who is starting to recognize they're playing a victim?
Yeah, so there are three things. First of all, you have to resolve that you will make the change. And no matter what hits, no matter what obstacles you face, you have to resolve that you will not give up. No matter who tells you you can. I'm a high school dropout, ex-drug addict, single mom. I'm a multimillionaire running a 130-person practice that I started 13 years ago. And so I reinvented myself from a government employee to an entrepreneur. And so you have to have resolve. But the other thing is you have to surround yourself with the right influence. Your network is your power. And if you don't have the right influencers and people that have done what you want to do around you, so there's a line of sight, you will continue to stay stuck. And lastly, you have to have faith that it's possible, right? Faith in yourself. And a lot of that comes through that trauma healing, through therapy, through getting the right tools, and certainly listening to the right podcast is a good start. But there's so many tools available to us right now to re-engineer ourselves and transform. So those are the three top things that I think I employed that really yielded success in my story.
Incredible. So where can everyone get the book? Please go to, how do they get the book? Amazon? Is it in bookstores?
Yeah, so it's an Amazon bestseller and on Amazon, and also RebeccaContreras.com. If you subscribe and connect to me, all the tools that I provide are free on my website. Lots of curriculum and tools that you can get to sort of re-engineer your own journey. But thank you for having me, and I love what you guys are doing to tell people stories. There's a lot of power in the storytelling, as you know, and it gives people hope when they see someone's been where they are and they can get out of it as well.
Your story is someone else's survival guide.
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you, Mike.
Amazing.
Good to be with you all. Take care.
Bye. Mike, that was so great. That was
What a
so
story.
Good. Right. All right. So who's that? That was so amazing. Who's our next
Yeah,
guest?
we have